Hi, my name is Dana Pape, and I enlisted in the United States Air Force in 1991 and retired as a major in 2015.
I'm Chris Pape. I'm from Ohio. I'm an electronic media graduate from the University of Cincinnati, and I met Dana in 2001.
And we're excited to be able to have the opportunity to share our experience as a military couple, and I'm excited to share what I believe it means to serve.
And I'm going to talk about a little what it's like to be a military spouse.
So, grew up in Iowa, had an awesome family, a dad that was a Vietnam vet, and I didn't learn too much from him because I was a little bit of a slacker. I begrudgingly enrolled in the local university as an art major, and 2.5 semesters in, I realized I cared more about partying than I did going to class. And it kind of hit me one day that, man, I've got no direction. I need some structure in my life. Next thing I know, I wandered into the recruiter's office, and that was the best decision that I made. I ended up having the coolest job in the Air Force. I got to train pilots, put them in the centrifuge in the altitude chamber. They didn't like me too much, but I loved my job. And started to build with that sense of camaraderie, and it was giving me a lot of confidence that, man, this is awesome. I've got some structure in my life. And the Air Force then was encouraging me to, okay, now that you're training the pilots, you need to go figure out, you need to go feel what they do. So you need to go to the same survival schools and the jump schools. Jump school, okay. All right, so I did my 5 jumps. All right, I got even more confidence. Go to survival school, water survival, and then combat survival. And without going into too much detail, I will say that combat survival school gave me a new perspective on what it means to serve. I had the opportunity to see what POWs went through, to see what our Vietnam vets went through, to see what World War II vets, and all of them. And it was a very humbling experience. And the Air Force must have saw something in me because shortly after going to all those schools and training the pilots, they awarded me with an ROTC scholarship. So I went to Colorado State, got my degree, and commissioned in 2000. Shortly thereafter, I met this guy.
That's right. I'm a lucky guy. But you know, when Dana and I first met, I didn't know that she was in the Air Force. We lived in Fort Collins, Colorado, which is about 40 or 50 minutes south of Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is where she was stationed. And so when we met online, we kind of, you know, we communicated back and forth for a little bit before actually meeting. And so I had no idea she was in the Air Force until about our 3rd date. And so when I found out, I thought that was really cool because I thought women in uniform were really hot, but I didn't really know what it meant to be in the military. I was a professional video producer kind of at the beginning of my career, following a successful career trajectory. And so as we were dating and going through the process before getting married, right, I was kind of living my life, having my career, and my philosophy was that she was living her life and having her career. So nothing out of the ordinary from a normal civilian couple.
So kind of, like he said, I went to my job, he went to his, whatever, husband, wife. I think then I ended up going to Kuwait.
That's right, yeah.
And how did that feel?
Well, before you went to Kuwait, we actually PCS'd a couple times, which I didn't know what PCS meant. I kept saying we're moving, and everybody saying, oh, you're PCSing, and I'm like, I don't know what PCS means. But yeah, there was probably from the time we got married to the time of your first deployment, several years went by. And again, my mistaken philosophy as a military spouse was, she has her career, I have my career. I had no idea that she had her lifestyle and I had my career, which was slowly turning into her lifestyle. So when she deployed for the first time, that was my first real experience with having a loved one go overseas for 6 or 7 months, and it was quite different. You know, everybody treated me a little differently at work, my family treated me a little differently, and I didn't like it so much because I'm kind of a private person.
So I came back from that deployment, and I had the opportunity as the military personnel flight chief. I was directly supervising 50-some people, and we took on a project called Operation Kudos, which the Kudos stood for Kids Understanding Deployment Operations. There were so many kids on that base where their parents were deploying, and we wanted to give them a better understanding what it meant when mom and dad left to deploy. So we would put them, all these kids, they went through a deployment processing line. We gave them orders, we gave them a backpack, we gave them medicine in the form of a jelly bean. We let them fire weapons, Nerf weapons. They got to play with the K9 dogs, and then finally we got them in the C-130 aircraft, where as the officer in charge, I got to brief all of these kids. So I started off by asking, hey, raise your hand here if your mommy or daddy is deployed. And just about every hand went up. And then before I could start the briefing, there was one boy that in the back, he said, my daddy deployed, but he didn't come home. I was stunned. And at that moment, it hit me even further and further refined what it means to serve. When we raise our right hand, it not only affects me, the service member, but it affects the spouse. We don't have children, but man, that little boy, it affected his life. So that opportunity made me a better leader, and also, I hope, made me a better spouse in recognizing just what it is to raise your right hand. It doesn't only impact you, but it impacts all of your family.
It did, and I remember that time, and I remember how affected you were. And that's the funny thing, is that Dana was affected by it, but I wasn't. I was still ignorantly bliss about my lifestyle as a military spouse. You know, she started paying more attention to me and wondering about my needs, and I'm like, I'm still gainfully employed, having a good time with you. I don't understand why you're so, you know, appreciative of what I do as a spouse, because I haven't done anything differently since we met. But that all started to change, and I'm going to kind of hog the mic here just a little bit because it takes a few minutes to set up. But shortly after Dana had that experience, we PCS'd to Columbia, South Carolina. And my career as a video producer was, as I mentioned before, still on the upward trajectory. Well, we moved to a very small market. We were only there for a couple of years, and I couldn't find employment. And we were only there for 2 years, so I didn't have time to open my own business. I didn't have time to make the connections needed to bring money in for the family and to do my share of the marriage, you know. So I was very frustrated with this. I got online and started looking for military spouse organizations to learn how other military spouses have been able to overcome, you know, the experiences of trying to maintain and grow a career while being married to a member of the military. And I found probably 400 or 500 different websites and organizations talking about military spouses and, you know, how to help with careers. And the problem was, though, is that all of those organizations were written by women for women, because the traditional military spouse is female. Those websites had some good information in there, but it wasn't specifically tailored to a male, and definitely not tailored to a video producer. So I got really frustrated with the whole search, and after talking with Dana for a little while, I said, you know, I'm here in Columbia, South Carolina for a couple years with nothing to do. I'm going to use my training as a video producer who has experience creating educational videos and training videos, and I'm going to start my own organization. And I'm going to make this organization tailored for men by a man. And I call that organization Macho Spouse. And so I spent the next couple years driving around the country, interviewing on video a bunch of other male military spouses. And I didn't want this website to be just kind of a, oh, woe is me, look at I can't find a job type of website. I wanted it to be more of a proactive, engaging experience that would give a blueprint for other guys to learn how to best handle military life. And so a couple interviews grew to a couple more, and before I knew it, I was driving all over the country, interviewing not just military spouses, but, you know, military family researchers, military family clinicians, PhD level psychologists, and financial experts, and it really brought me in to the whole community that Dana had been living, the lifestyle that Dana had been living, kind of without me for the last 8 years, for the previous 8 years. And so I can say, yes, I went through 8 years of marriage with Dana without realizing that I was a military spouse.
And along the way, he made even more connections with top-notch generals and admirals. I couldn't believe that he was finding connections with these people. It was astonishing, and I'm so very proud of him. And he's being very humble in not mentioning the fact that he was the 2014 Air Force Spouse of the Year. And I think maybe only the second male ever to be recognized with that. And unfortunately, when he was recognized with that, the Air Force said, congratulations, we're going to PCSU to San Antonio, and oh, by the way, Dana, get on a plane because you're going to Djibouti, Africa, which Djibouti is just a fun name to say. But so I'm deployed in Djibouti, Africa, trying to watch him online, several time zones away. The connection was horrible, and here I am trying to watch my husband get recognized for Air Force Spouse of the Year. So I'm incredibly proud of where we've come as a military couple, and being able to communicate across time zones, where we've come as far as communication with each other, but then more importantly, avenues like this where we're able to advocate for other military couples and share our experiences, how we get through this.
Yeah, and that's, that moment in San Antonio, I think that's when we both realized that, this military lifestyle, it is such a commitment, and you weren't able to physically be there for one of the most proud moments of my life. And I haven't been able to physically be there for some of the most proud moments of your life because you've been in war zones, and I've been watching football. But, so in San Antonio, I think we both came to the decision, hey, 24 years is a long time. Well, let's transition to the civilian life. Let's retire with honor and go chase our dreams.
Yeah, it was when the Air Force was having some major budget cuts and telling people, thank you for your service at 20 years, but see you later out the door. And so for me to be able to make that decision on my own and say, you know what, it's time, and it's kind of a side note, our wedding song was Follow You, Follow Me, and it's time for me to follow him and let him pursue his goal of becoming a real estate agent, and so here we are.
Here we are. And just real quick about transitioning into civilian life. I know there's a lot of people who talk about it, and veterans who do retire after a long career and move into the civilian sector and struggle with it at times. And I don't think what a lot of people realize, and this is what I've witnessed firsthand, is Dana was going through some of the same struggles that I went through in my early 20s, right? When I graduated high school and college, and you've got the whole world in front of you, and you're like, well, what do I do when I grow up? It took years for me to figure out my career path and my life path after that moment. And now Dana has to do that, 20 years later, 25 years after me. And so as I think a lot of military families, my advice I would give is you just have to be patient, with the retiring member. You've got to be encouraging, and you have to remember that you went through the same thing. You did the same thing. Don't get frustrated with him today, because 25 years ago, I guarantee you there was somebody in your life that was getting impatient with you, but may have helped encourage you a little more than put you down. So transition isn't always easy. It hasn't been the easiest for us, but we're so happy we're here, and things are really looking good now.
And with the Lake Norman community, we love it here. And then the added bonus for me to help me through my transition has been Richard's Coffee Shop. I tell you what, I walk through that door, and if I'm stressed, my shoulders immediately come down. It's comforting, it's good for the soul, it's comforting knowing that everybody in that room, whether they're a World War II vet, Vietnam vet, they speak my language. So I'm grateful for that, grateful for this community, and grateful for this opportunity for us to share our story.
Thank you.
Thank you.